Plants vs. Zombies is either a game you never stop talking about or one that you've never touched before in your life. It's the kind of title that has a habit of popping up in conversation more often than you'd expect. It might be easy to ignore at first, but then it worms its way into the topic again and again, and before long, you have to ask, why is everyone talking about this? Plants vs. Zombies is one of those games you'll absolutely love if you can't stand games that have a really slow start. For as good as tower defense games are, it's hard to argue how long it can take to get things going sometimes. They can have a really slow startup before you get interesting unit types, challenging levels, or even new mechanics. Almost immediately in its opening 20 seconds, Plants vs. Zombies presents you with the interesting question of whether you want to use sunflower plants to generate your resource, or whether you want to use your DPS plants to stop zombies. Sure, the first level isn't very difficult and there's a lot of leeway here in how you allocate your setup, but it sets the precedent for the difficult but engaging decisions you'll be making in future levels. The opening of this game is not where the interesting decisions begin and end. In its opening hours, Plants vs. Zombies is steadily feeding you new plants, items, and mechanics in general. There are several issues that keep PvZ from being truly flawless, and they become hard to ignore the more you play. I'll be going over those in this video, but it's still very apparent why this title, and the franchise as a whole, is as acclaimed and beloved as it is, even if it goes kinda south towards the end. I have a real soft spot for games that have that early PopCap game art style like Bejeweled, and even just older PC titles that look like they should be pre-installed on a device. PvZ definitely continues that trend with nice zany colors and big simple lines. Everything is really readable and comprehensive. It also helps that the faces and just general vibes for a lot of these plants are a whole mood. It's very obvious Potato Mine does not want to be here at all. I don't know what's up with this piranha plant though. Taking a whole zombie out in one move is great, but he takes half an hour to chew through them, and he's just a giant sitting duck during. To put the entire game very simply, it's your job to lay down plants to stop oncoming zombies from reaching your house. Enemy and unit types vary, and before long you'll be making nice tactical decisions and unlocking new items along the way. Surprisingly, pretty much every plant type in this game feels like it has an actual purpose. Some behave very similarly to others for sure, but the sheer variety of different units and unique functions they each provide ensure that you're always either gaining or sacrificing something very useful when you're deciding your initial loadout. And from a design/balance perspective, this is a really good problem to give your players when they sit down with your game. Sunflowers will generate your main resource that you can use to spend on other plants. Walnuts provide a nice barrier to protect your DPS units, and chompers chomp. It isn't all about how much sun power you have though. Some plant types have longer cooldowns than others. Take the spore plants for instance, which don't cost anything but have a higher cooldown than most units. You can tell that this game was incredibly thought out, with new mechanics and plant types always popping up consistently, just as things are starting to get stale. While it's somewhat of a weird comparison to make, it reminded me of platformer games in that the basic premise is really simple and it requires the level and enemy types themselves to shake things up for things to stay fresh. It can be anything from different zombie types to environmental objects. As with most things, it isn't all perfect, and I regret to inform you that while many may hold this part of the game close to their heart, it didn't really resonate with me in particular, and the exact part I'm talking about is the mini-games. Don't get me wrong, some of them are okay and do a good job of breaking up slower-paced, strategic gameplay that you'll be doing most often, but some of them end up being pretty mindless to do, and it's especially annoying when you want to just dive back into the action. I did rather enjoy the zombie whack-a-mole though, and it definitely did its job of providing relief from the core gameplay loop. As you can see with the footage on screen now, there is a big visual issue with this game, particularly the Game of the Year version on the PC version of Game Pass. I can't speak for every version of the original Plants vs. Zombies since I know there's a lot, but with how long this game's been out, I was very surprised to see the lack of any real HD sprites or backgrounds. Obviously not a deal breaker and not a standard at the time of its original launch, but this is touted as the Game of the Year edition, so you figure this would be an upgraded version of the original release. On top of that, there's also the issue of balance. I understand this is one of the hardest things you can get right in your game, but seriously, I can't even fathom not including the cherry in every single lineup for every single stage. It's a portable mistake fixer that obliterates zombies in a 3x3 tile space, and even with the incredibly long cooldown and somewhat higher sun cost than other units, it's still head and shoulders above a lot of the competition. Though in all honesty, I can't say they weren't fun to use. Plants vs. Zombies has been around for a long time, so it's had the benefit of being on many different consoles. The mobile and DS versions of the original game actually are many people's preferred way of playing the game, partially because the touchscreen controls are well suited to the type of game that it is. It gets called a tower defense game a lot, and I don't think that's a perfect descriptor. Obviously, you are not guiding the enemy units along a linear path since there are multiple lanes you have to account for, but I do think it scratches that same itch as many of the old strategy games we loved playing online. There's also a lot of overlap in the Binding of Isaac and PvZ communities, which ultimately resulted in the creation of I Rule, a game that marries PvZ's gameplay with the theming of Edmund Macmillan's Isaac franchise. It's incredibly polished for being a fan project, and were I not told beforehand, I could believe that this was a straight-up official release. You can let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me eventually cover this. From here on out, the series takes several weird decisions and nosedives in quality, so if you simply love Plants vs. Zombies, this is probably the time to avert your eyes. Plants vs. Zombies 2 did eventually come to fruition, no pun intended. While the core of the game is considered excellent by many, it is locked behind annoying free-to-play practices that prevent it from having the same heart and care as the original. The spin-off series Garden Warfare had a surprising amount of love from fans, but did ultimately need a reboot, which people don't consider as good. It's unfortunate that PopCap stuck the landing so well with the series and hasn't been able to find its footing since, so I'll keep an eye on the franchise for sure, but as of now, I'm not getting my hopes up. With Plants vs. Zombies 3 on the horizon, I am hoping we'll get a franchise revival of some kind, but putting aside the rocky launch it had years ago and the graphical redesign it underwent, everything we know about the game suggests the same issues that Plants vs. Zombies 2 had will be present. Plants vs. Zombies might not be an entire series that you can get into, but the first game is absolutely a respectable strategy game that deserves at least a single playthrough. If you want to see what video games were like before all the AAA live service nonsense we see today, Plants vs. Zombies is a perfect encapsulation of a developer in their prime, just trying to make a good video game. Listen to me, I know you hear this a lot, so it can be difficult to not sound like a formality or anything, but I truly mean this. Thank you for watching this video. Besides the usual liking and subscribing, there's also a Discord server in the description if you would like to join. Currently, we're trying to hit the 400 user mark. It's incredibly active, and there's tons of Plants vs. Zombies fans in there, and I actually started making this video because I knew a lot of them were interested in this topic. So if you have an idea for a video, you can definitely provide it in the comments and in the server itself. There's other ways to support the channel that are also provided, but all of it is optional, and I appreciate whatever it is you're able to do. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.